So, it's taking a walk. It is about time that I shared with you guys my testimony, and I just wanted to find the right spot to share it. And for me, that means someplace fun that I also have kind of a connection to. So, welcome to the creek by my grandparents' house, where I used to play and have adventures and good times. And yeah, I just wanted to, like, in a way, bring you guys here with me. And so we're gonna go find a spot. Sound good? Cool beans. Alright, so it is pretty clear that I am not the only person who likes the creek, especially during the middle of the day. Observe. Gotta go find a space. Oh, chilly. Oh, chilly. Okay, so I hope you can hear me over the rushing river that I'm sitting next to. But in short, so less than 5 minutes, here's my story. I was born into a Christian household, and if you don't know what that means, it means at the age of 3, I accepted Jesus because that's how you get to heaven. You know, 3-year-old me was on a Sunday night being tucked into bed by my mom, and I said, "Mom, how do you go to heaven?" She goes, "Well, you accept Jesus into your heart." And I said, "Can I accept Jesus into my heart?" And she goes, "Yeah." So she told me the prayer, and I said the prayer, and I said, "Amen." And I looked around, just like this, and my mom said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, where are my wings? Because you need wings to go to heaven." Duh. So, that was the first time that I accepted Jesus. And kind of tells you a little bit about how much a 3-year-old can understand about heaven. Which is nothing wrong with that, just the way it is. And then, as I got older, obviously, I heard a few more Bible stories. I made some friends and kind of learned about Jesus a little bit from them. And eventually, I went to Camp Awana. Now, here's the thing about Camp Awana. It's in Wisconsin, so I don't know anybody that goes to Camp Awana from Colorado. There's nobody. There isn't. But my mom went there growing up, and my cousins were going there, so I was going, and honestly, it was pretty fun. But there's something interesting about Camp Awana, and that is that they take a lot of inner city Chicago kids who don't know about Jesus as well, and have no interest in knowing Jesus. And they saw me from Colorado, just this skinny little dude, and I was also, boosted up a year to be with my cousin. And they were not always the nicest. Understandable, but not always the nicest. And I found out that at Awana Camp, the people who claimed they were Christians and actually were very different than the people who either claimed they were Christians and actually weren't, or the people who just weren't Christians. Meaning that the Christian people were actually my friends. I could rely on them and depend upon them and have fun with them. Like, they were actually friends, and so I wanted to be like them. And they told me, well, this is the difference. We love Jesus, and we actually want to get to know Jesus, and we read the Bible, and we think about it, and we talk about it, and wonderful things like that. So at the age of 12, I was a little older than some of you. I accepted Jesus into my heart for real. That was how I was thinking of it. And I tried to be somebody who was a good friend to other people, who listened to Jesus and, prayed and read the Bible. And most of that I was kind of taking away from my parents, which was, I think, a pretty good example. They're Christians and they do a pretty good job. And then I got into high school, into youth group, and I can remember the very first youth group lesson that I was ever taught was you have to make faith your own. You can't rely on your parents' faith to turn you into a Christian or into somebody who follows Jesus. You actually have to choose for yourself to follow Jesus. And so that was what I did. I was like, well, one, I want to go to heaven. Two, I want to be somebody that other people want to be around. And at that point, I was starting to ask myself the question, like, who am I? Who am I really? Who did God make me to be? And I want to be that person. Not the person that I can be, who has all of these various flaws and like gets angry with his friends sometimes, and sometimes gets sad without a reason, and just tells lies for the sake of lying. Like, that's not fun. Two, that kind of leads me into more consequences than fun stuff. And three, that's not who I'm made to be. And why would I want to be anybody else? So it was through youth group that I really became somebody who follows Jesus. And that got tested a couple of times. One time was when I was actually driving with one of my small group friends. His name was Dallas, and we went up for our first ever, just the two of us, 17 or 18 years old, snowboarding day. And we took my dad's car, and my dad had told me beforehand, like, hey, you drive. Nobody else drives the car except you. And I was like, okay. And after my first day of snowboarding, I was absolutely exhausted, so I wanted to make a responsible decision, and knowing that I was way too exhausted to drive, I looked at my friend Dallas, whom I trusted to drive, because he was a reliable and trustworthy friend, as well as a reliable and trustworthy driver. He had a job delivering pizzas at the time. I was like, hey, can you drive home, dude? I'm afraid I'm gonna fall asleep. He goes, yeah, I can drive home. So we were driving on the way home, and lo and behold, I fall asleep. And within a few minutes of me falling asleep, he falls asleep at the wheel. And I kid you not, that car was an absolute wreck. We had gone down I-70, and he woke up and overcorrected, and the car rolled, and we could have very well died. And we both walked away from that without a scratch. So I knew then that God was saving me for something. During my college years, I had the chance to go winter camping all by myself, which was kind of just the way that I did it. I would not recommend anybody else do it unless you're looking for a very, very rigorous, somewhat miserable experience. But I went winter camping by myself on St. Mary's Glacier in the middle of December. And what I found was, one, I really can stay awake all night. And number two, I was reading through the Bible because I wanted to meet with God on this mountain. And I was reading through just a whole bunch of these genealogies in Genesis. And I was like, why the heck are these recorded? Like, if I was going to record my genealogy, and I started going through the people who were in my family, and I realized something, that the reason that the Bible records all of these people is because he knew them for that specific time, which means that he knew me for my specific time, and he and this is how he blessed me. He put me here at this time with this family, with these friends, in and around these people. And that was just a moment of like shock and awe for me, to realize that this God who is so big also knows where everybody fits, how everybody goes, which was kind of an incredible experience. And then finally, something that God has rescued me from. I've already told you, a lot of you, about this, but again, during my college years, I suffered from a time of depression. I was a roommate with Nate, a great roommate. He buoyed me up a whole bunch. I had Polly, I had a bunch of people praying for me, but I, for whatever reason, was completely and utterly depressed. It literally felt like I was wearing like a robe made out of lead or something else really, really heavy. And after kind of going through the motions, of, well, I'm going to keep trying to just keep getting out of bed in the morning and be a friend to my friends and to people that I don't know, and do all my assignments and go to chapel. There was this one chapel that really spoke to me, and afterwards I went into a soundproof piano room and I cried and I yelled, and after all of my crying and all of my yelling, and finally into like when I was on my knees in prayer, just very quietly asking God, please help, I felt his presence come into the room and lift me up. It was like getting rescued by Flight for Life. I felt like I had a belt wrapped right around my chest and it was pulling me up, saying, it was God saying, you're gonna be okay. It's not all better just like that, but you're going to be okay. So I trusted in that. And I had a lot of people praying for me, and I prayed for myself and for others, and not too long later, I was actually raised up out of that depression, and it was incredible. And then the last thing that I can attest that the Lord has done for me is he has given me my purpose in life. So if you were able to ask me when I was like 6, Ryan, what do you want to do with your life? I would not have been able to tell you at all. Like, some people say firefighter, some people say astronaut, some people say scientist, some people say mad scientist. I know a few of you would say mad scientist. And I was just like, I don't know. And there were 3 signs that God gave me. 1, my youth pastor told me, Ryan, you should be a youth pastor. He was like real straight up front about it. It was great. 2, I was working with and volunteering at another youth group when that youth pastor told me, Ryan, you should really be a youth pastor. And finally, I was on a youth retreat with Polly, and we organized like 80-some kids to go flying down this hill, like all yelling and having fun, and like later we would lift our hands up in worship, and like those students plus Polly plus me, and it was God telling me like, dude, this is what I made you for, let's go. So I said, okay, let's go, which is how I found Calvary. It's how I found Daniel. It's how I found you guys, and this is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm here for you, and that's my testimony, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Love you and I miss you. I'll see you next time. Cold. Oh, that's so nice.